talk a bit about the projects that I've done in my experience in undergrad and grad school. So, similar to Emmanuel, I didn't really think I wanted to do science or math or physics when I was in high school. I wanted to work on boats. Like I applied to BCIT to work on tugboats, and that's kind of what I wanted to do. And then, for some reason, someone told me that you can explore physics, and I was very easily convinced. So I did my first year at Cap College today. It's called Cap University. They've got a good first-year engineering transfer program where that first year is identical to the first-year engineering here. So I took all the same courses, but the class sizes were much smaller. Tuition was much cheaper, and I'm from the North Shore, so it was just a 20-minute drive. So that's a beautiful campus. It's right in the middle of the forest. My first project that we did was to make a car out of wood that only ran rubber bands, and so we built gears, and this is the car that we made in a group of 4 people or 5 people. It was a competition, and this one we won actually when we first ordered the cars, mainly because we used gears. No one else used gears. And, we had access to a laser cutter, so our gears were very nice. So maybe that's an unfair advantage. But over the course of the first year of engineering, you pick what kind of engineering you want to do. You get these presentations from people from chemical engineering, biological engineering, civil engineering, and engineering physics. So engineering physics, if you don't know, is run to applied science. It's an engineering program, even though it's the curriculum is the honors physics, honors math curriculum, and or the core courses, and then in addition to the engineering curriculum. So even though it's mostly physics, it's through applied science. So I decided I would go into engineering physics, and largely because right off the bat you do a big robotics course. And so this kind of defines early engineering physics. Everyone talks about the robotics course. Over the summer, everybody builds their own robot that has to go through some kind of obstacle course. And at the end of the summer, you've got a very big lecture hall full of people that watch your robots. And so that's the robot that we made. We had to go through some course and rescue this little toy doll. There I am setting up the doll before the run. And my job on the team was to make all the electronics. So all these little circuits, those are all the things that I built. My teammates built the robot, built the gears, and we ran the code to program things to do what we wanted it to do. And we did very well here, and there I am, very excited. We won much more often than we thought we would, and in the end we came in 2nd place. So it was a very good experience. Something else that's really good about engineering physics is that they've got a very good co-op program. So co-op is a program that runs all your internships. And you start in 2nd year, and there's one between 3rd and 4th year, and one between 4th and 5th year. In total, you do 16 months of internships. And you have to write reports, and the department helps you out writing the resumes or the cover letters, and you get a lot of support from them. So I had a very, very, very good co-op experience. I was able to, I did exactly what I wanted. Right off the bat, I worked at an electronics company that designs and manufactures electronic components for cars and trucks. And so flashing lights for trucks, heated steering wheels, a lot. They're actually GM's #1 producer for electronics, and they're in Nelson. It's a tiny town 10 hours east of here. The next year, I worked at a company that did traffic systems and street lighting. So like how long is the light red for, how long is the light yellow for, installing red light cameras, putting in the wiring for street lights and things like that. And then for my last co-op job, I was working in the radio science lab on campus here, working on the wireless systems and antennas. And the reason why I'm so happy that this was my co-op experience is because I kind of got to try all different types of engineering. You know, working for a corporation that manufactures its own stuff, working for a small consulting company where you can become a partner, you can become an owner, and working in a research site. And so by the end of my degree, I had a very good idea of the different kinds of engineering, what I could do with my degree. In 3rd year, I took the skills that I had from my electronics co-op job, and I built a gyroscopic mouse. So this is the circuit that I designed, and that's what I built. And that's the gyroscope. And it's big and it's clunky, but it was only a demo. You wouldn't actually use this. So you guys have heard of gyroscopes? You may not understand how they work. Does anyone know how a gyroscope works? So a gyroscope, that's just a ball mouse. And so I didn't make the entire mouse, I just made the gyroscope part. So I took apart a ball mouse and then I replaced all the guts with this. So the way a gyroscope works is if you have something that spins and you push on it this way, it'll move this way. So if you have like a spinning top, if you think of when you nudge it, it starts, even though it keeps spinning, it spins like this, right? Like it goes around in a circle. That's because as you pushed on it this way, it reacts by pushing that way. And so I exploited that property of spinning discs by wedging this material that changes resistance when you press on it, and I exploited the fact that the resistance would change to produce a signal that the mouse would read as a movement. So I could ultimately point this thing at my computer and move it around, and the mouse would move around wherever I wanted it to. So that was a pretty cool project. For my senior projects in 4th and my 5th year, I and 2 other people designed a laser, and we built the laser, and then we put it in a larger system to cool atoms down to like a billionth of a degree above absolute zero. That took a lot of work, and it was a lot of fun. And this was my first taste of physics research. It was in a physics lab, not an engineering lab. I had to learn a lot about optics, designing things in a program called SolidWorks. This is where we designed it. That was a lot of fun. That laser is still being used today in the lab to run all their lasers. And so you're very proud of the fact that all the research they're doing is on something that you built. By the end of my, after I graduated, almost like a week after I got my degree, I got hired by a geophysics company. So geophysics is a kind of physics, or a branch of physics, where you use physical techniques to see what's underground, so sort of, or what's in the earth. So companies would hire us to tell them like where the gold was, or how much gravel they had, how much sand they had. And the reason they hired me was because the first project that they needed me to do was to build a robot to inspect the inside of a pipe in a dam. And so the way a hydroelectric dam works is that you've got this pipe taking water from the top of the mountain down to turbines at the bottom of the mountain to generate power. And so if you have a very, very old pipe, you need to inspect it to make sure it's in good condition. And because of the experience that I had in robotics, circuit design, and programming, right after the interview, they told me that they needed me within 1 month to make a robot to do the job. And so I was overly keen, and I took it, and I lived in a mountain for 3 weeks working on this robot. So that's when you're in the mountains. You're like a kilometer inside the mountain, and you've got these bikes that take you around. It's really, really big. And it was 16-hour days every day for 3 weeks in this mountain, just on your hands and knees building this thing. That was a lot of fun. That was an adventure. After that as well, I stayed at the company for about a year, doing various different kinds of surveys. None of these pictures are of me. That's because you can't really take pictures when you're on the site. And so these are pictures that we are allowed to keep on the website for the company, so we can keep those. But this here is a survey that I did a few times. This is where you put a bunch of microphones on the earth, and then you blow up some dynamite, and then you listen to the shock waves bouncing off various different layers of the earth. Well, just, you have this much sand, and the bedrock is maybe like 100 feet below. And so you listen to these echoes, and the time it takes for these echoes to get to the different microphones tells you how much sand that you have, or how much dirt that you have. We also did this similar thing with radar over ice, or on submarines to see where gold was underneath the ocean floor. I also worked on, I I helped design, in a team of 3 people, this submersible that would do surveys just like that at the bottom of the dam. So lots of robotics. Now, I'm in my second year of my master's studying something called scanning tunneling microscopy. This is where you have some probe about like an atom's width apart from a surface. And as you scan over the surface, as you get near atoms, you get near the electrons belonging to atoms, you can suck those electrons up. And in doing so, tell where the atoms are on the surface. And you also know about the energies of these electrons. And so one of the cool things that we did, more for promotion and less for science, was write a tiny little UVC out of atoms. So these are carbon monoxide atoms on a copper surface, and you can just push these little atoms around and make the letters UVC. So each of these little bumps is one atom. So this is the only way you can take pictures of atoms. You can't use light to take pictures, you just have to tell where they are based on their electrons. And so this is what this microscope looks like. This is where I work, this is my lab. It's a giant microscope, even though the experiment itself, I mean, I'm lost. Even though this is 1 nanometer, this is a billionth of a meter. This is like thousandths of a hair, right? The experiment is tiny. This is the size of the microscope that's required to do that tiny little measure. Yeah, this whole room is separate from the entire building. You know, in the basement, you cut out the building. This room isn't touching anything else in the building. It's just touching the earth, and the whole room is floating on these pneumatic pistons, essentially, to damp out all the vibrations. So as you're in this room and you close the door, you can't hear or feel anything at all. And that's the only way you can get accurate measurements, because even if someone's talking in that room, essentially, or moving, the tip will just bump in and break on the surface that you're taking. So you have to be very, very careful to keep the vibrations up. So that's where I'm at now, and I hope to graduate within the next 6 months or so.